This wasn't just a political disagreement. It was a war for the soul of a nation and a battle against a financial monster that thought it owned the government. The bank war of the 1830s wasn't an accident. It was a showdown engineered by one man who refused to bow down to a mountain of fake money and unelected power. When President Andrew Jackson finally killed the second bank of the United States, he didn't just veto a piece of paper. He took on the wealthiest elites, the corrupt politicians, and a system designed to keep the rich comfortable while the working man bled. But the most dangerous part of this story is how little has changed. If you were an ordinary farmer or worker back then, you were probably getting crushed. One day you were working your land, trying to build a future. The next, a distant banker was printing paper money that made your hard-earned savings completely worthless. The bank was getting rich off the sweat of your brow. Not to help you, not to build the country, but to line the pockets of the very institutions that held all the cards. The bank war is often explained in boring history books with dry terms like charters, federal deposits, and specie circulars. But strip away the textbook jargon, and it's just a very old story with a brutal twist. It is a story of money and power, unchecked and completely unaccountable. Let's rewind to the 1820s. The United States had a central bank run by a man named Nicholas Biddle. This bank wasn't a public service, it was a private monopoly with government backing. Because in America, controlling the money supply wasn't just a business, it was the ultimate weapon. And Wall Street's ancestors figured out how to use that weapon against the people. Enter the Second Bank of the United States. It was a simple scam at its core. Take the government's money, lend it out, and let a few private stockholders rake in all the profits. The pitch to Congress was seductive. They claimed the bank brought stability, low risk, and steady credit. Who wouldn't want that? But there was a catch. To keep the monopoly going, the bank needed to buy loyalty. When they wanted to secure their power, they started handing out favors to lawmakers and the press. Cheap loans for politicians, easy money for friends, and financial ruin for anyone who dared to stand in their way. They created a bizarre situation where unelected bankers had more power than the President of the United States. And the more power they grabbed, the more arrogant they became. At the heart of this corrupt system was Nicholas Biddle. He was supposed to be a steady hand on the economy. But instead of serving the public, he used the bank's massive wealth to influence elections and punish his enemies. He rubber-stamped toxic loans for political allies while squeezing the common folks dry. Everyone at the top was making money, so no one asked hard questions. By 1832, the bank was pushing for an early renewal of its charter. Politicians were bought and paid for. The elites thought they were untouchable. It looked like a permanent victory for the wealthy. It was an illusion. And then Andrew Jackson fought back. Jackson understood that paper money printed out of thin air was a trap. He saw that the value of the working man's labor was being stolen by bankers producing nothing but debt. And suddenly, all those safe bets made by the corrupt elites were in serious danger. Jackson famously vetoed the bank's charter. He didn't just reject a bill. He declared war. He warned the nation that the rich and powerful were bending the axe of government to their selfish purposes. Behind the scenes, panic spread among the wealthy class. Biddle and his cronies stopped lending money to punish the public. Credit froze. They intentionally caused a financial crisis to force Jackson to surrender. People lost their jobs and their farms. In a matter of months, the bank deliberately crashed the economy just to prove it was in charge. But here's the twist. Jackson didn't blink. The president pulled the government's money completely out of the bank. He told the bankers to their faces that they were a den of vipers and thieves. He promised to rout them out, and by the eternal, he actually did it. The architects of the corrupt system were finally stripped of their monopoly. This wasn't just a political victory. It was a moral one, a massive pushback against systemic betrayal. It revealed a chilling truth that still matters today. The financial system is not built to serve the public. It is built to protect itself. Nearly 2 centuries later, the dust has settled, but the core machinery has returned. Only now it's bigger, faster, and much harder to control. In the years since Jackson left office, the banking elites built a new system. A polite term for it is central banking, creating trillions out of thin air to boost asset prices and bail out their friends. And it works if you own the assets. The stock market soars, corporate profits explode, but wages don't. Inequality deepens. The rich get richer, and the fundamental imbalance between financial markets and real life only grows. Then came the modern era of endless bailouts. When crises hit, governments unleashed massive waves of stimulus. Zero interest rates, emergency lending, and blank checks for the very people who broke the economy. And for a while, it felt like they could keep the system afloat forever. But of course, we hadn't. Inflation roars back, quietly stealing the purchasing power of every dollar you own. The very thing elites dismiss as temporary becomes stubborn and persistent. Central banks scramble to undo their own excesses. Interest rates surge, markets fall, and debt becomes an anchor around the neck of the working class. And the old cracks, the ones Jackson warned us about, start showing once more. Except this time the system is far more fragile. Governments are deeper in the red than ever before. Consumers are addicted to credit. The financial industry is less transparent and has evolved new tools for leverage and illusion. New technologies promise innovation while quietly repackaging the same old traps. And yet the core dynamics remain unchanged. A financial system designed around debt-fueled growth. Policymakers afraid to let bad ideas fail. Regulators completely captured or outgunned. And everyday people left to pick up the pieces when the music stops. So what can we learn from Andrew Jackson's banking war? First, unchecked power is never safe. The more complex the financial system becomes, the easier it is to hide the robbery. Wall Street thrives on opacity. The more you don't understand, the more they can steal from you. Second, incentives matter. If bankers know they own the politicians, they will take impossible risks. If regulators know their next job is at the very bank they watch, they will look the other way. And if leaders fear market crashes more than public anger, they will protect the system, not the citizen. Third, financial education is survival. You don't need to be a Wall Street insider to protect yourself, but you do need to understand the game. That means recognizing the lies. That means questioning the official narratives. That means asking who really benefits every time you hear about a new policy or a bailout. Who bears the risk? And what happens when the illusion shatters? Because it always shatters. The bank war was not just a chapter in a history book. It was a preview, a warning for all of us today. And if you look closely, the same arrogant architecture is still in place. Just more digitized, more automated, and more fragile. And when the next crash comes, don't expect the government to save you. Expect a bailout for them, expect inflation for you, expect absolute volatility. But do not expect justice. Not unless you understand what's actually happening behind the scenes. Real wealth isn't just paper money. It is knowledge, awareness, and resilience. It is the ability to see the vipers and thieves before they strike. Because the system will never warn you. The headlines will not save you. But history will teach you if you are willing to listen. History doesn't repeat, but if you don't understand it, it will bankrupt you all the same. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. The past left a trail. I'll show you where it leads.